We miss out on a lot when we don't have a healthy relationship with our mothers. When the very person who is supposed to love us unconditionally and support us does the opposite, there is an internal wake. We become forced to seek this kind of love elsewhere, insert chosen family and community. Romantic relationships and friendships are impacted, specifically the relationships we have with the women in our lives, insert mommy issues. If we feel abandoned by the person who birthed us, it becomes very believable that our partner will stop loving us for who we are, that they too will lash out on us when we disagree with them, that they too will hurt us and never take responsibility for the pain they've caused. The impact is as heavy as 1,000 chains wrapped around our bodies. This is an excerpt from my article, Healing Through a Black Mother's Love, From Intergenerational Trauma to Accountability and Resilience. And this was published on May 13th, 2018. So a few years ago. And it only made sense for me to title this episode based off of that article that I published that my mother has read because I definitely sent it to her. And this was published either on Mother's Day that year or around, but I pretty much think it was on Mother's Day. And I'm releasing a song that I will share with y'all at the end of this episode that will be dropping this year on Mother's Day. Having these conversations are hard because of the instant backlash. So let's get it out of the way and then put it on me. My mom, like most Black women, has a lot of unhealed trauma that is bigger than me and was here before I ever arrived in her life. My mom raised me and my brother as a single parent and made less than minimum wage for most of her life. I never went hungry. I thrived in school and always had clean clothes. My mom attended every parent teacher meeting and was on many, many PTA boards. Okay. Treasure, all of the things. My mom is a devout Catholic, goes to church several times a week, and loves to help others in need. Many things are true at once. My mom is very overbearing and controlling. Throughout life, she's put burdens and expectations on me that negatively impacted my mental health. My mom has talked about me to family and friends in the meanest manner that you would ever think. And sometimes I would stop and say, wow, I did come out of you. And for you to talk to me and about me in such a mean way just really breaks my heart, truly. I remember one time overhearing her shit talk about me to my aunt, and she didn't know that I was home, and I overheard it all. When I set a boundary with my mom in my late 20s, she punched me in the back of my head and followed me around the house screaming and yelling, threatening to beat my ass. My mom kicked me out of the house with only $4 in my bank account while she knew that I was in a very abusive relationship and blamed me for being in that relationship as long as I was. When I set a boundary with my mom back in late 2022, she said she's not coming to my wedding. Among other mean things, she uninvited herself to my wedding. I look just like my mother, y'all. The reality is, she was my first true love. My grandmother would tell me stories about how I would cry hysterically whenever she would leave. I see pictures of us when I was a toddler, when I was a baby, and you could tell how much I admired her, how much I wanted to be like her, how much she was my hero. However, something shifted when I started to come into my own and find my own voice. And for some, that comes later on in life to find your own voice and come into your own. I was in elementary school. I knew the things that I liked. I knew I just knew who I was in so many ways. And the thing that she instilled in me to speak out and to never be a follower, always be a leader and ask questions and all these things, I started to do that in the household. She ain't like that. And I remember talking back, quote unquote, AKA giving my opinion, which led to me being seen as disrespectful. And I was always put on punishment. And I know it's not good to always use always or never. However, so much of my childhood, I remember being on punishment and being in trouble. And so I would say I was often put on punishment. I was in fifth grade and my mom took out this cute hairstyle that I had in my head that she did because my mom know how to braid down. And in place, she put in what I would call silly braids, where my hair was in huge plaits and tucked in, no hang time allowed. She also had me remove my earrings and my nail polish. I went to school the next day feeling my absolute worst. I remember not even answering questions that day. Teachers clearly saw a difference in my demeanor. And this was the stripping of my femininity. That was the punishment that my mom would later say was better than beating me because she saw the impact of what that did and how it really, in so many ways, in my 10th grade body, really broke my soul. Speaking of beatings, there were plenty. Okay, the belt was not something, to this day, I don't even like to wear belts. I mean, the belt was just constantly a use of force and control in my household towards me specifically. And sometimes I didn't really know why. I was just speaking and being myself, and boom, I was being disrespectful, according to her. She told me that something switched inside of me, and I was no longer her good little girl anymore. And this alter ego became known as Veronica. And this quote unquote switch was literally me not doing what she wanted or me not believing something that she said. Literally just me being my own independent free thinker. The very thing that she instilled in me to do. But once again, you do that outside the house, not with me. Now here comes empathy. I'm Haitian. I kind of want to say enough said, but you as the listener may not know what I mean when I say I'm Haitian. In a Haitian household, the child is to be seen, not heard. In the Catholic Haitian household, it was honor thy father and thy mother. And that was constantly embedded into my brain. Whenever I would do something that they seemed as inappropriate, they meaning my grandmother and her, because I was raised very much by both of them. And so naturally, me expressing myself was an issue because it was seen as I wasn't honoring my mother. That whole talk back was seen as disrespectful and as a result, dishonorable to my mother. Now, this episode would be hours long if I listed all of the ways I wasn't seen and all of the ways I wasn't celebrated for who I truly was. Truly am. Not the fake, I like you only when you do as I say. I don't like that dictator shit. I'm talking about the times that I wasn't able to fully be myself. And that truly just felt like most of my childhood. I felt like I was fighting to be me. And I've said this before, and I will be linking the full article to the episode notes. You know, and I've said this before, I'm sure in previous episodes, that I was very confused to be taught, you know, to be authentic and to speak my mind. And then whenever I spoke my mind in my household, I was shunned. I was like, I don't get it. Like, this is how you raised me to be. Like, this is who I am, right? It's who I am and what you encourage me to be. But once again, not in the household. So I'll fast forward to adulthood, specifically in April of 2020. At this point, I've gone several of long periods without talking to my mother as a way to protect my peace. I, at that point, had attended a couples counseling session with my mom, a family session that I call a couples counseling session with my mom. And, I keep thinking about how happy I was that she was in therapy and how happy I was to be invited to the session, only to find out that she was lying to her therapist and wasn't being honest about all of the ways she's caused harm. And so when I started to speak the truth, the therapist would say, "Wait, you told me a different version of that story." And my mother immediately was so embarrassed. It was very much like she was caught. She was caught in a lie, in a few lies. And that's when I walked out, because I was like, this is not helpful when you're not being honest in therapy. So I protected my peace. And I remember being in relationships where people would say, you got to talk to your mom. And oftentimes it was really rooted selfishly for them, because they wanted to have that connection. Sometimes when people don't have a connection with their mom, they're like, well, can you talk to your mom? Because I'm trying to have some sort of mother figure. So I remember, listening to that person who I was with at the time and saying, all right, I'll speak to my mother. You can come over. You can eat the food because my mom cooks it down, like I said. And I realized that, I was pressured essentially to speak to my mom again. And there was a part of me that missed her and said, you know what, maybe she changed. Just maybe. So by 2020, I thought she learned her lesson and was going to actually treat me better so that we can have a good relationship. So it was fair to say we were on pretty good terms in 2020. And so on April 11th, my mom calls me and I immediately fall to the floor in my kitchen. She's bawling, crying. Her mother, my grandmother, Jocelyn Mills, the love of my life, is dead. She kept repeating, they killed my mother. They killed my mother, because she died in a nursing home during the peak of the pandemic. And my mom felt there was a lot of blame to go on their part and their carelessness and not properly reporting what was truly happening with my grandmother and her body as this illness was spreading rampant through the nursing home. And so sometimes I can close my eyes and still hear the pain in my mom's voice. And it was like nothing I've never heard before. My mother and her mother were best friends. They had the closest mother-daughter relationship I ever seen. And it was clear that my mom was the favorite out of the 6 children. However, I also witnessed a cycle of my grandmother saying really mean and hurtful things, like threatening to put me, my brother, and my mother in a shelter. My mother would literally run and hide in a closet as I would pack my items in a plastic bag, thinking my grandmother was really going to kick us out. My mother would cry in this closet. I would later learn that my grandmother never really meant those things. However, she never apologized with words. All of a sudden, my grandmother would curse my mom out. And then an hour later, they're laughing and drinking coffee like nothing ever happened. An hour later, my grandmother's probably calling her up, calling her upstairs to where my grandmother lived and was like, I made some food. It was always that cycle. And this cycle taught my mom that you can talk to your child reckless without any consequence. And all you got to do is make some food and y'all be good again. So my mom no longer had her best friend in this world as of April 11th, 2020. So naturally, she's distraught. And I wanted so badly to comfort her with a hug. I wanted so badly to let her know that she was going to be okay. However, we're on lockdown, so I do the best that I can through the phone. Months after my grandmother's passing, I would listen to how bad her mental health was weighing on her spirit. Through the phone, I could just hear how my mom her life has changed. It's literally upside down. And I prayed that her and I remained on good terms so I could be a support for her. However, if I go deep, I was also praying that she wouldn't do what she always does, which is lash out on me when things aren't good. On my grandmother's birthday, a few months later that year in the fall, I wanted to visit her burial ground. A month beforehand, my mother promised to go with me. So the night before, I asked her for the address, like, where are we meeting up? Took off the day of work, I'm like, well, we meeting up. I'm happy to finally be able to see the place where my grandmother is laid to rest or was laid to rest. She refused and said that she didn't want me to go to the gravesite either. So she's like, I'm not giving you the address. You'll go when I'm ready. And I don't want to go right now. This devastated me because I was unable to properly pay my respects because of the COVID guidelines at the time. And she would then say, she was my mother, not yours. Y'all, that crushed me. I set a boundary and said, Mom, I need some time from you. Like, this is so messed up that you aren't going to go with me after we've planned this. And you won't even give me the address for me to go myself. Like, you're withholding that information. Like, I am so hurt. So I was like, I need some time from you. And she casually said, Juby, do what you want to do. I'll talk to you when you get over it. And this was another gut punch because I felt like she was trivializing my boundary and not taking it seriously. Like I said, I've spent time before not speaking to her. I've set those boundaries before. So she was like, do what you do and talk to you later. Like, that was the vibe. 2 months later, from my grandmother's birthday, I had an unexpected move to Atlanta. And till this day, I haven't been given the address to my grandmother's gravesite. It took me a while to forgive her for that. A lot has happened since then. She uninvited herself to a wedding before the planning even begun. I am her only daughter and maybe the only child of hers that will ever be married. Yet out of anger, she said that she wouldn't come and celebrate one of the biggest days of my life. Out of anger. This is a pattern, right? Out of anger, one day she got so mad and texted me, telling me that I couldn't come back home, kicking me out the house. Out of anger, she withheld the address of like, well, I'm not going, you're not going, too bad. Right. So there's a lot of things that happen when she's really, really angry. Right. Out of anger, when I set the boundary, I got punched in the back of the head. So many patterns of that. So when I think about how my mother was a major part of every life change, graduations, all of that, yet she took herself out of this one on her own, that was it for me. I realized that her low blows were no longer something I was going to subject myself to. I was like, no more. And this is an era in my life where I'm healing from abuse. And when you're healing from abuse and you're telling yourself, no longer will I allow people to hurt me and disrespect me in this way, that applies to my family too. That applies to my mother too. The bullshit has to stop. And sometimes you have to be the one to remove yourself so that the bullshit stops. It's been almost 2 years since I've had a relationship with my mother, and I choose to love her from afar. I ask about her when I speak to my cousin. I pray for her. I pray for her wellness. I pray for her healing. People ask me all the time to forgive her, but I already forgiven her. She will always have a special place in my heart. Without her, there is no me. I know this to be a forever fact. I also know that it is not safe or healthy for me to have a relationship with her. Many things can be true at once. The truth is, I have a deep mother wound that I heal daily. The work is continuous. The healing is not linear. I have really up days, and I have days where I'm like, wow, this is really my reality. I go on Instagram and just other various forms of social media, and I see people rave about how their mom is their best friend. And they go on cruises together and they dress alike and they're living their best lives, or so it seems. And I don't envy it, right? It's not an envy. However, it's more of a sadness that that's not my reality in this lifetime. And I'm happy that Black people, specifically those who are socialized as Black daughters, are able to have beautiful relationships with their mothers. I'm so happy for those people. And the reality is, it's sad that that's not something that I'm able to experience in this lifetime. And even when people are like, but you can have that. Well, what happens when you've spent your entire life trying? At what point do you say, I love you so very much? However, you are not good for me. Like, at what point do you get there and you feel solid with that decision? And that's where I am. So, yes, I have a deep mother wound. And what's also a reality is that I wish that my mom was the generational curse breaker in my lineage so I wouldn't have to be. So here's Family Ties, a song I wrote, an ode to my inner child who gets to heal out loud through me, and in dedication to my mother for creating me so that I can be the generational curse breaker that shifts the energy of our lineage for the better. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. Time to honor y'all with my truth, huh? Listen up. Dear mama, I got heavy trauma on my chest. I love you and you've caused a lot of stress. I got pain in my heart and yes, you played a part. I know you didn't have it easy, believe me. From another country, learned a whole new language, the anguish. However, this song ain't about that. A cry for accountability you can't take back. Not trying to hurt your feelings, getting to the core. You tried your best and I needed more. All the times you gaslit me and validated feelings with no sorry. Had me out here bugging, spirit feeling dark and stormy. The root is healing trauma with your mama. She ain't here no more to heal hers. You gotta heal yours. The time is now, stand clear the closing doors. Healing family ties. The song looks you right in the eye. Curse breaking, not easy, mom. I need you to try. A single mom raising 2 kids, making less than minimum wage. She had it hard, ugh. She did the best she could and you only get one mom, okay? Yeah, I only get one mom and one dad too. However, speaking my truth, it's okay, boo. Emotional abuse is real. Writing out these lyrics means I get to feel, I get to heal. Dear dad, blood on your hands too. Leaving me and Jay in 1990, got some explaining to do. I know your dad wasn't here and that hurt you. You got this generational trauma too. You're just like them, ended up carrying it long math, a deadbeat path. You had a lot to make it up to us, you falling short. Your time is running out, don't turn this off. Not gonna yell and curse you out again. This time I'm out here music blasting, now I push the pen. Spend my life trying to make you proud. It didn't work, but this will, cause there's truth ringing loud. Tears ran out a long time ago, took a while to get here. Slow-mo, hard to miss what I never had. I know I'm worthy, all I wanted was a good dad. My first heartbreak was you, still healing, trying to make it through. I'm living testimony, living proof. Generational trauma ends with you. Healing family ties, this song looks you right in the eye. Curse breaking, not easy, dad, I need you to try. I need you to try. I can't believe you just went in on your dad like that. He didn't even have his own dad in his life. Didn't he used to give your mom $199.22 for the both of y'all after he was taken to court? And he calls you 3 times a year, right? Ugh. At least they're both alive. You're so ungrateful. I'm pouring my heart out. Truth is, it's really up to me, huh? I can't make other people give me what I need. The generational curse breaking is giving myself the things I need to succeed.